Military operations in Gaza have resulted in devastating impacts on civilians, particularly through the destructions of homes, schools, hospitals, and other essential infrastructure. This raises critical questions under international humanitarian law and human rights law. Civilian infrastructure refers to the buildings, systems, and services that support everyday life, including housing, education facilities, medical services, water networks, electricity grids, and transport routes. Under the Geneva Conventions, these objects are protected and must not be targeted unless they become military objectives. When civilian infrastructure is destroyed, fundamental human rights are directly affected. Loss of homes violates the right to adequate housing, attacks on schools undermine the right to education, and damage to hospitals threatens the right to health and even the right to life. For nearly 2 decades, Gaza has experienced repeated large-scale military operations, including in 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021, and most recently in 2023. Each operation has caused widespread destruction to essential civilian facilities, leaving hundreds of thousands displaced and critical services disrupted. These impacts are widely documented by the United Nations and other international bodies. In response to this worsening crisis, international civil society movements such as the Global Summit Freedom Flotilla have attempted to break the blockade and deliver urgently needed humanitarian aid. These missions highlight how severely Gaza's infrastructure has been damaged, leaving civilians reliant on a global solidarity and external assistance.
Gaza has been through so much already, and the damage to buildings has made things even worse. When hospitals can't help the injured and schools are destroyed, it makes life much harder for everyone. As hospitals are destroyed, patients are forced to evacuate, leaving them without proper care.
قسم الاستقبال والطوارئ وحدة الإسعافات الأولية أيضا الصيدلية أيضا المختبر كله تم تدميره بالكامل.
Without functional hospitals, it leads to higher death rates from preventable injuries. Furthermore, during military operation, many schools have been destroyed or damaged, leaving thousands of students without education and safety. When schools are destroyed, communities lose key centers for development, which can delay overall social progress and recovery. Students are unable to attend school, which interrupts their education and future opportunities. This law protects civilian infrastructure, including schools and hospitals, during armed conflict by prohibiting attacks on civilian objects, and Article 53 of the 4th Geneva Convention and Article 52 of Additional Protocol emphasize that civilian infrastructure must not be destroyed unless required. In armed conflicts, civilian homes often become collateral damage. In Gaza, the destruction of homes during Israeli military operations has left families displaced and communities shattered. International law, including Article 53 of the 4th Geneva Convention, protects civilian property and prohibits its destruction unless absolutely necessary for military operations. Yet, entire neighborhoods have been leveled, leaving thousands without shelter or basic security. This not only violates the right to housing, but also the fundamental right to live with dignity. The United Nations Security Council has condemned these acts, noting their disproportionate impact on civilians. Beyond the physical loss, the destruction of home tears apart the foundations of family, community, and identity, causing deep and lasting psychological harm.
Military operations in Gaza have led to the destructions of homes, schools, and hospitals. Under international humanitarian law, especially the Geneva Conventions, civilian objects must be protected unless they are directly used for military purposes. When hospitals or schools are damaged in attacks, questions arise about whether these actions are necessary or whether they amount to violations of the law of armed conflict. The destruction of hospitals denies civilians access to medical treatment and violating the rights to health. The targeting of schools interrupts education, undermining the rights to education and the future of children. Families losing their homes face violations of the right to adequate shelter and dignity. Destroying civilians' infrastructure can cause long-lasting problems. Families lose their homes and live in crowded shelters or refugee camps. Children suffer trauma, miss school, and have fewer chances for the future. Without hospitals, clean water, and electricity, health problems grow worse, with disease and malnutrition spreading. This hardship keeps pupils in Gaza poor and dependent on aid, making recovery very difficult. If rebuilding and accountability do not happen, Palestinians will continue to face uncertainty, and the crisis will affect future generations, adding to instability in Gaza and the region.
The destruction of homes and civilian infrastructure in Gaza is not only a physical loss, but a profound humanitarian and legal crisis. It violates international humanitarian law and undermines basic human rights, including the rights of housing, health, education, and dignity. Beyond the immediate damage, these actions leave a long-term scars, displacing families, traumatizing children, weakening communities, and trapping future generations in a cycle of poverty and instability. However, hopes remain through accountability, protection, and reconstruction. The international community must enforce international law, ensure a protection of civilians, and hold violators accountable. Most importantly, lasting peace and respect for human dignity are essential. Without justice and protection for civilians, recovery is impossible. But with genuine commitment, healing and stability can still be achieved.